Okay, so firstly, you're all very welcome. My name is Katie O'Neill. I'm the marketing manager here at the UCD College of Engineering and Architecture in Dublin, Ireland. So very lucky today, we're being joined by the program director, Oliver Kinnane, and also a current student, Stephen Wall. So without further delay, I would like to welcome Oliver to give you an overview of this program. Thanks, Oliver.
So I'm program director of the program, but I work very closely with a colleague of mine called Philip Crow, and the two of us will interchange as program directors through the coming years. So, but I suppose I just wanted to give a brief overview as to why I thought this program was important and worth setting up. So I established this master's program because I believe strongly that we need to act now to dramatically reduce the unsustainable stresses we are placing on our planet. To achieve this, we need graduates who will act for change. Particularly, we need to change how we design, construct, and live in our buildings and cities. We need to establish an urbanism that is sparing of energy and natural resources. I am an avid researcher and educator. I studied both engineering and architecture and have worked in energy, industrial, and product design. I run national and international research projects that evaluate unsustainable practice and design and develop solutions. My teaching is primarily research-led, particularly at graduate level. My research is essentially transdisciplinary, drawing on a wide range of interests and a multidisciplinary background. So that's an introduction to me and to why I think I set up the program and why I think it's important. I mean, just to expand on that, today we live in a highly urbanized planet with over 230 billion meters squared of built floor area around the world. And that 230 billion meters squared of built floor area is responsible for over 3 trillion kilograms of CO2 emissions each year. And this number is increasing. It has at times decreased, but it is in general increasing. And when we add indirect emissions from power generations to that, we're looking at over about 10 trillion kilograms of CO2 emissions related to buildings. And if we continue doing that, we will add 572 trillion kilograms of CO2 by 2060 to the operation of our buildings only. But by that time, it is also predicted that we will add an extra 230 billion meters squared, essentially doubling the amount of built floor area that we have today. So this process is wholly unsustainable. 230 billion meters squared is equivalent to over 100 trillion kilograms of CO2 in the construction of that, not the operation as I was talking about, but the construction of that. And that's equivalent to actually, if this is in New York City, the development of one New York City every month for the next 40 years. That's more than New York cities that I can fit on this page, 4 times more New York cities that I can fit on this one slide. And the really worrying thing about this is that the climate modelers, the people who are doing the really exciting science at the level of climate modeling to try and understand the future of our planet, predict that for a 50% chance of avoiding a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature, we have to limit our total carbon emissions to 500 gigatons of CO2, or 500 trillion kilograms of CO2. So you'll see that both in the operation of our buildings and the construction of our new buildings, we are surpassing these numbers, and quite dramatically. So the idea behind this master's is that you learn about this crisis, the relative numbers and impacts on the decisions that we make, and also the solutions at both the building scale and the urban scale to try and create a more sustainable built environment into the future, one that will not have a dramatic negative impact on our planet. This year, these were the core modules last year. We've changed things slightly for the coming year. And the core modules include an introduction to urban design. The next module, the architecture in a climate emergency, is my own module. And this is a core module and key to the master's program. You'll do a linked research project, which is beginning now for Stephen and his peers, which is a research project that runs through the summer trimester. You'll do a module on urban resilience and ethics with Philip. And then Philip and I run a module together called Climate, Carbon, Cities and Change, which is a new module that we're introducing this year. And the primary and core module for the master's group, and run solely for this master's class. And then we have a 10-credit module called Research Methods, or Research for Environmental Policy. And this year we've expanded the range of options quite considerably as well. So you can choose from, so the core modules count for 30 credits. The linked research project, which is it counts for 30 credits. And then the options modules account for 30 credits, 15 credits in each of the first 2 trimesters. And you can choose from a wide range of modules from across the university. And we've reached out to a number of schools, including geography, planning, archaeology, sociology, and social justice, Department of Law. You can study everything from climate change law and policy to economic globalization and social change, rural and landscape planning. You can do studios in urban design. You can take on, if you're an architect and you're looking to expand your skill set, you can take on classes in computational design or graduate modules at the school, including research modules on timber, concrete, air pollution. The energy systems and sustainable environments was a very popular module this semester. So that's just a selection of those opportunities that are available. And I'm happy to answer any questions on those. Within the linked research project, we really invite you to, it's a wide open project, and we offer a number of options on that. We call it the linked research project because it is a possibility to link it to an academic internship, and some students are this year. Or you can do a more traditional thesis, solo kind of research project, or you can join one of our research groups within the school and work on a large scale European project, maybe in the area of smart cities, or as I show here on the slide, this is a new European project that we think we have been successful with. We're currently negotiating it with the European Commission, but it's focused on development and design of green building neighbourhoods, working closely with Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council to develop Dún Laoghaire into a green building neighbourhood. And I'll be talking about this throughout the masters in the year ahead. But this kind of project offers plenty of opportunity for students to engage in the project and get to know public, private body players within it. I do a lot of work with the SEAI as well. We work with a lot of the new technologies for low energy buildings, things like heat pumps. We're doing quite an in-depth study of heat pumps, photovoltaics and renewable additions to buildings, and also looking at or evaluating the performance of these new highly insulated, high-performing buildings to see are they performing as they're designed. So for those of you who come with a more technical leaning or more technical interest, we have a number of projects that are technology focused. I've done a lot of projects with the European Commission before, and these are again kind of projects that students can, there are still hangovers from these projects and students can link into those. We do a lot of work with new cladding systems for the renovation of buildings and the preservation, particularly of buildings that embody high embodied carbon and trying to extend their lifetime. So we work with developing concrete solutions for precast cladding panels in this case, working with vacuum insulation materials and high strength concretes. And concrete is actually one of my major interests as a researcher, because concrete or cement production is responsible for up to 8% of all carbon dioxide emissions today. And solving this and other material challenges such as the steel challenge are vitally important as we progress. I work with bio-based concretes as an alternative to standard concrete. So things like hemp concrete or hemp lime and the construction typologies that derive from that are key part of my interests. But also with more standard kind of concretes, I'm trying to improve concrete, and we have been working with the European Commission on a big project to try and develop stronger concretes. And the one here, all these two concretes may look exactly the same, but the one on the right is actually 3 times stronger and has half the embodied carbon of the one on the left. And it's these kind of material innovations that we think can allow us develop our built environment, but develop it in a much more sustainable manner. Philip also has a wide range of research interests, much more on the urban kind of scale than probably I do. I work a lot more on the building scale with some urban interests, but Philip has recently set up a Centre for Irish Towns, and actually they're having a soft launch of this on the 17th of June for anybody that's interested in joining. And there's a number of projects deriving from that, working with local councils around the country in the design and rejuvenation of their town centres. Philip also has a number of other projects looking at coastal communities and the impact of climate change on those, and some other projects that we can introduce at a later stage. So I hope that gives you an overview of the Masters in Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action. We look forward to those of you who signed up already. We very much look forward to a very exciting year ahead. And I'm available to answer any questions, and hopefully Stephen will give you some insights as well.
Thanks, Oliver. That was really great to get such a comprehensive overview of this one-year Masters. So I'd now like to invite Stephen to share his experience. Stephen is a current student of the MSc in Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Katie. I just following on from that, my name is Stephen. I'm currently doing the Masters, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience in it. I came to it from an architectural background. I studied architecture in Bolton Street, was practicing for about 10 years, and I kind of reached a point where I felt a Masters was necessary in order to deepen my knowledge about some pressing issues like climate action, which are hard to really get your head around without getting some real level of expert knowledge. And as a practitioner of architecture, I felt it was very important. And I think Oliver has just summed up why very accurately. So in order to sort of enhance my practice and my knowledge about these issues regarding practice, I thought I'd come and do this particular Masters, which seemed to sum up a lot of areas of interest for me. And so far it's been very good. It's a full year Masters, which means you'll have 3 trimesters, the last one over the summer, which is the linked research project, which is for which I'm taking the thesis option, which is to write a thesis about any subject you like, which relates to architecture, urbanism or climate action. So it's an extremely broad range of topics. There's also 2 trimesters of taught modules, and Oliver just showed you a list of these, and that list is well worth taking a look through because there's something for everybody really. I was able to indulge in modules in areas of interest that I never had an opportunity to study academically before because they're not necessarily traditionally associated with architecture. And that's the benefits, I think, of doing this particular Masters. So for example, the energy systems module really clarified my thinking in terms of sustainable energy, solar PV, wind power generation, and so on an academic level, rather than just reading newspaper magazines and so on. So obviously I'd have an interest in these things, but then actually studying the module really makes that knowledge concrete and gives me a very good and very up-to-date assessment of where we are in regards to those technologies, etc. Similarly, transport planning was something I never studied academically before, but this module allowed me to investigate car dependency and its impact on urban environments. Then in terms of theory, I studied urban urban design theory, which is a fascinating module filling in gaps that would have existed in my knowledge of classical urbanism theory. And then, like Oliver was saying, a lot of architectural modules relating to energy efficiency and so on, filling more gaps. So the whole experience has been a process of a really valuable process of filling gaps in my knowledge, that areas that I felt I needed to know more about in order to be a successful practitioner of architecture in an era of climate change, which I feel is just going to get more and more important. And I think all people working in the built environment, whether they're architects or urbanists or anyone else, will just need to have a very, very strong handle on these issues. And that's where I think this course is ideal for me. I also enjoyed the course as just having such a broad range of topics to choose from, as I say. Particularly, it was strong on research for environmental policy. So I'd never done a master's before, and I, having done that module, I'm now feel very well educated in how to do academic research. So, for example, literature reviews, surveys, primary research, data analysis, things like this that I had no experience of before, and have, I think, through UCD been very well taught to me and my cohort this year. And as class rep, my job is to collect complaints, I suppose, or issues of concern from my fellow students, and there haven't really been any. I think it's obviously all been online this year, but we have had good support and very good relationship with the lecturers and with the college in general. So that's all run perfectly smoothly. So in terms of how I think this is going to benefit me, I think I can return to practice with much more confidence in these issues and a heightened level of awareness of what we really need to do as an industry, as a society, and also possibly investigating the option of further research now that I've got a taste for academia. So I'm, as Oliver said, I'm very happy to answer any specific questions too, if anyone has any regarding the program. But it's definitely been pretty good for me so far.
Stephen, thank you very much for that. Great to hear your experience so far of this master's program. I might just ask my colleagues Oliver and Laura to turn back on their cameras, if you don't mind. We have a few questions that have come in already. The first one, Oliver, what is the difference between this program and the Urban Planner program? If you could highlight any key differences for our attendee.
Yeah, sure, Katie. I was actually just typing a response. I suppose the difference is that this master's is much broader in scope, and it's less specific to the profession of urban planning. I mean, it comes at urbanism, I suppose, more from a sustainability perspective as a primary focus, as opposed to urbanism from a planning perspective, related, from the planning industry perspective, I guess, if that makes sense. So we do cover a lot of urbanism. You will take two modules one module in urban design as a core module, and then you have the options to take urban design modules or take the studios from their urban masters of rural and urban planning. But I suppose the focus is broader. We also look at architecture and climate action, climate change. So there's multiple other topics included there.
Thank you for that. The next question we have is someone asking, and perhaps Oliver, maybe for you to answer this, would you recommend the course right after the Bachelor's of Architecture?
Actually, maybe Stephen might be better placed to answer this. I think I would. Yeah. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, well, my experience is that I'm doing it after 10 years of practice. So I think having a little practice behind me is very useful in doing the course, but I would imagine that it's perfectly good to go through, and some of my cohort are actually doing it directly after graduating from the Bachelor. So either or really, and I wouldn't, let me put it this way, I wouldn't see any reason why not to. I think it's a very good step up in lots of areas from the normal design teaching.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen.
And another question, Oliver, is it possible to apply for extra optional modules?
Is it possible to apply for extra optional modules? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, that would be a query really for the program office, but it's a 90 credit masters, which is already quite a heavy workload for an academic year, and it's 30 of those are core, and they form like the basis of the learnings for the masters, and then 30 are optional and can be chosen from across the university. I suppose we would like to stick to that structure to ensure that students are both gaining the core knowledge and content of the masters, and then have the opportunity to reach out into other faculties and subject areas to learn from sustainability from their perspective.
Okay. So, my understanding is that you can't take on additional option modules outside, say, for example, the 90 credits. And I think from what Oliver is saying as well, even if it was possible, it probably wouldn't be recommended because the workload is heavy enough and your full concentration should go on to the 90 credits that you have to complete. A question for you, Laura, and I'm assuming, I'm not sure where the student is from, but they are asking, is it possible to work simultaneously while undertaking this program?
Yeah, sure. So if the student in question is a non-EU student, obviously coming to Ireland, they will be legally allowed to work 20 hours a week during term time, and that goes to 40 hours a week non-term time. We always advise students where possible, and if they cannot, if they don't have to work, they shouldn't work, because as Oliver's indicated, the workload can be quite heavy, and it's likely that students' academic aspects would suffer if they're working too much. But that's up to the student. Legally, they are allowed to work at the same time. Our advice is to maybe students in the first trimester that they don't work and kind of figure out their timetable, figure out a new course, and then make a decision then afterwards, maybe in the second trimester, if their time management skills allow them to work afterwards.
Thanks, Laura. Stephen, it might be worth getting your viewpoint in, considering you gave up work to undertake this master's. Do you think it's possible to do both?
Yeah, it is. I have been working just a few hours a week during it, and Oliver's quite right. It is a very, very big workload in this master's, albeit a very interesting one. I've managed it so far. I wish I didn't have to work. It would make my life much easier. But it is possible, and to do a few hours. And some of my colleagues in the course are also working part-time as well. So it's possible. Makes it a little bit trickier, but we've managed to get by so far.
Probably comes down to some excellent time management skills as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, pretty much.
A question for you, Stephen. Do you think the programme is enough for 1 year in regards to the number of subjects involved? Do you think the year is long enough to cover all the course?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, and you'll do a set of subjects before Christmas, a set of subjects after Christmas, and then the summer thesis. So it is a big amount of information. I think a year is fine though, because it's really pointing you in the direction of knowledge that then you can go and look up more yourself. So it's condensed, but I think it works, So yeah, I think a year is just right for me anyway. I don't think I would have been able to do a master's over 2 years. But I think the balance between a lot of information and having time to absorb it is generally fine.
Thanks, Stephen. And to yourself, Oliver, do you need a background in architecture to apply for this program, or what backgrounds would you accept?
No, you do not need a background in architecture. There are a number of students on the class currently who come from an engineering background and other backgrounds. About 50% of the class currently come with an architecture background. You don't necessarily need you don't need a background in architecture, but you certainly need an interest in architecture and an interest in a more sustainable built environment. So you can take option modules that will further your architecture education, but you can also avoid them. And within the core modules, I suppose the module that's most related to architecture is my architecture in a climate emergency module, but that is very much focused on sustainable solutions for new architecture. So you can. It looks at the technologies and kind of envelope build-ups and different design strategies without kind of needing to actually architecture design a project. if that makes sense.
And Stephen, just in your current cohort, what are the backgrounds of your classmates?
Yeah, so there's 7, I think, of us, and I think 3 of us are classically trained architects. The rest are from planning and engineering backgrounds, and I don't think anyone's had a problem with the content. As Oliver says, if you don't come from an architectural background, it's very simple not to choose the architecture-heavy modules, and we haven't had a problem with people who weren't architects having problems with the course. I think it's perfectly fine to do it if you don't have an architectural background.
That's good to know. Thanks, Stephen. Oliver, someone's asking, would you recommend any prep, reference or online source for students before they commence with us in September 2021?
Yeah, I can. What I might do, Katie, is I might put together a reading list maybe that could be then circulated. I just need I need a little bit of time to think on it, I guess. For anybody who's looking for an instant read, I'm reading the Bill Gates book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster currently, which is an absolutely excellent read. But I can think about more kind of high level or architecture urbanism specific texts, and I can formulate a reading list for circulation.
That would be great. So what we will do for everyone is we will send on the reading list to everyone tuned in today, and we will get that to you by the end of the week or early next week. Someone is asking, is there a possibility of a part-time option for this course going forward as an alternative to the full-time academic year, or a part-time course in the urbanism discipline?
There is not currently. We don't have a part-time option currently. It's something we might introduce into the future, but for the academic year that's ahead, it's only a full-time course option.
Okay, and someone asking, is this course accredited, Oliver?
The course is not accredited, and people should know that. This is a knowledge kind of delivery master's as opposed to a professional progression master's. So it's not accredited by the RIAI, who would be the accrediting body for architecture, or Engineers Ireland, or any such body. It's an educational master's, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
Great, thank you. And someone asking, they have a bachelor's in urban planning. Would they be suitable to apply for this course?
Absolutely, yeah. It's almost the most ideal background.
Brilliant. And maybe this is a question Stephen could answer initially. What is the relationship like between the student and faculty during this program?
Well, as I was saying, I was selected as class rep, and we've had meetings between the faculty and the class reps of all the master's programs frequently during the year. So there's a very, very good dialogue. Any issues that any of my classmates want me to raise at those meetings, I can raise them, and they're generally very well received, and it's a good process. So we've had a good relationship with the staff and faculty of UCD.
That's great to know. Do you have anything to add to that, Oliver, or is that okay?
Well, I do. I suppose Philip is very much engaged with the students through the linked research project. So although the 30 credits are specific to the summer trimester, throughout the first 2 trimesters, we try to engage the students early in the process of developing their research ideas and their ideas for their thesis. So Philip runs a number of what we call MOCA cafes on Friday afternoons through the first and second trimesters, and I think it's been a very successful method of keeping the class together, bringing the class together for regular discussions, be it about the research or the course more generally. And I think for the year ahead as well, we will have the new module, which is the Carbon, Climate, Cities and Change module, will be specific to the Masters of Architecture, Urbanism and Climate Action. So that's an opportunity for the class to come together every week in first semester for what we hope will be a very dynamic and engaging module.
Brilliant, thanks a million. And just while you were speaking about the research or the thesis, someone's just asking for clarification. They're wondering, can it be theoretical or practical? They just said it wasn't that clear to them.
It can be both. So I suppose we kind of think of it as 3 different options. One, a kind of a purely theoretical, if you have a concept that you want to research and investigate, and you write a thesis on that under supervision of either Philip and I, plus another suitable academic in the university if required, or if there is one to match with your project. So that's one option. The second option is to come and join one of the research groups that exist within APEP, the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, working on projects funded by the European Commission or Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland or the Environmental Protection Agency or similar, where you'll join a research group, you'll work with some data, or you'll work on some practical work to produce a kind of a project research practical focused thesis. Or the other option is to actually set up a linked project with industry, be it a pure internship or a piece of research practical piece of research that you're fulfilling for industry. And we also will accept that as an option for the module. So it ranges from theoretical to practical, I guess, is the short answer.
Okay, and someone else asking, what are the career prospects after this master's? So maybe Stephen, you'd like to answer that initially?
Yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, it's very useful to have in your back pocket as a practitioner of architecture or urbanism planning and so on, just to have a really, really good understanding of these issues and a whole range of issues that you may not have dealt with academically before. So architectural practice or planning practice, can be enhanced with this knowledge, or else I think you can proceed to more research if you like. Maybe Oliver has more information, more options.
Yeah, I mean it's a question we get asked quite a lot, and I guess students should know, and we don't try to disguise the fact that this is not like a master's as part of a linear path, say from bachelors of architecture to masters of architecture through post-professional exams, to get become a accredited architect. It's not that kind of master's. This is a master's that introduces a lot of new concepts at a high level of research and academic understanding. So it's really giving students, the idea is to give students from a range of different backgrounds key knowledge in areas of sustainability, climate change, particularly related to the built environment. So as Stephen says, I think that there is no specific or definite career path, but this this kind of knowledge can be very valuable for anybody working in the built environment, anybody working in public policy, anybody looking to go into local government, anybody looking to go into environmental consultancy, academia, obviously, and sustainability is becoming one of those topics that kind of overriding all others now. So there's knowledge in this master's that you can bring into a wide range of subject areas and a wide range of professions.
And just on that, Stephen, someone is asking, how do you think this course content can be applied practically in architectural projects?
Well, it kind of depends on which modules you choose. So, for example, there's a lot of there are certain modules that really dive very deeply into architectural technology and how that can be developed sustainably. There's architecture studio. So depending on the modules you choose, you can have a very practical hands-on education in architectural sustainability if you wish. But because the course is so wide, I personally kind of chose more policy-based modules, so environmental policy, energy policy, things like that. So there's no question that if you pick the right modules for you and the ones that you're interested in, you can definitely apply the knowledge to architectural practice. You just have a look through the list of optional modules and you can see there's several of them that are very, very practical. So whether you want something extremely practical or something extremely theoretical or policy-based, there's a range of options there.
Thanks, Stephen. Oliver, back to you. Our students usually experience practitioner in the architecture and urbanism field. For instance, would you recommend this master's to a recent politics graduate student who has experience in environmental policy?
I would, yeah, and we do actually have a number of students coming into the class this year from I think there's one coming in from, let me think now, there's somebody coming in from economics, I think, I think there's somebody coming in from political science background from the US. So there's a wide, I think there's somebody coming in with a law background as well. So there's a wide range there's a number of students coming with even a wider range of backgrounds than, say, the current cohort. So yeah, I certainly would.
That's good to know. Someone is wondering, can they count on some kind of support or guidance from UCD when they are selecting their option modules? I guess there's quite a wide variety. So if they need support in choosing the right ones for them, can they get that? Philip and I plan to run kind of induction classes in the weeks in advance of the semester starting, just to advise as best we can, having not taken the modules ourselves, but knowing the academics involved and the course content in a number of cases, we're going to try and advise as best we can, and also based on the feedback from the current cohort, who have been very open with us about what they believe was successful and what was more arduous maybe, or difficult through the semester, or through the program. So we're planning to do that in the week ahead of the first trimester, so we can advise then for sure. Okay, so I think it's important for anyone who can't decide that they attend those induction sessions with Oliver and Philip, and they can ask their questions. If your questions are still outstanding and you're unsure, you can always reach out to myself and Laura, and we can link you in with Philip or Oliver for further advice to make sure you're choosing the modules that are correct for you. And our email addresses are available in the chat. Just a couple more questions because we're nearing the end of time here.
Katie, can I just jump back in on that one, Katie? Just the other thing I would say to students is certainly have a look at the module descriptors. The UCD have really driven a much more kind of information-heavy module descriptors in recent years. So there's quite a lot of information there available to be able to judge the options modules in advance, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And the module descriptors are very comprehensive in terms of students actually getting to understand what each module offers. And I know they even outline the assessment strategies for each of the modules, which can be helpful for students as well. We'll just take a couple more questions. So is it possible to develop some research with the teachers during the masters and be paid for it, Oliver?
It is certainly possible to develop research, areas of research with the faculty, yeah, for sure, and then to postmasters join a research project, yes, is an option. Yeah, like so there's often been discussion in the past that this masters would become a kind of a platform for further PhD level study, and you know, there are options for students to either join projects that have funding available at certain times, or to apply for IRC, Irish Research Council funding with the faculty of the involved, and develop a paid research project afterwards. But within the 1 year masters, no. After, as a stepping stone, yes, for sure.
Excellent. And just for our attendees' interest, Laura has posted the link to the modules and the module descriptors in the chat, so it's worth saving that link, as Oliver mentioned, and have a good look through it. Someone is asking, does the university offer support when applying for the internship as part of the linked research project, Oliver?
So by the university, I guess the school offers support, or those of us involved in the school in the master's program will offer support and guidance, certainly. If there's students with interest in certain topics, we can use our own network of contacts to put students in contact with employers, but I will advise that it doesn't always happen that students you know, are interested in the same topics that we have contacts with, employers that we have contacts with. So generally what we would say is that students kind of make the contacts themselves and set up the linked research project with industry themselves, but we will help out as best we can and put you in contact with any employers that we can, or any industry contacts we can.
Thanks for that. Also, this might be for Stephen or for Oliver, someone is asking, how was the field work during the course and how did that happen during COVID restrictions, or how was it compensated for during COVID?
Yeah, there was obviously problems with field work this year, and it kind of varied module to module. In one of our modules on urbanism theory, we needed to investigate streets and analyze them in detail, and we just did it on our own, basically. So the field work may have been a bit compromised, but I'm hoping though that next year some level of normality will come back into it. So the compromises we made this year hopefully won't be relevant, touch wood, next year. Oliver, what was your experience this time around?
A couple more questions we'll try and get through. Someone is wondering, how long will they spend on campus per day? Now, I'm assuming this is in a normal year. As it's only 1 year, so it's going to be an intense course, will they have time for leisure activities?
I found, sorry, Oliver, I found I was doing about 10 or 11 hours of lectures per week, and then obviously a lot more study and research time. But I think you could certainly have a life as well while you're at it. Maybe not at the end of term, but in general, yes, especially if you're not working part-time. And
it's worth mentioning to students as well, particularly those international students who haven't been to Ireland before, UCD offers a large array of clubs and societies, and it's a great way to get to know UCD, get to know peers across the campus. And there's some societies, like for example, the Hiking Society. It's a great way to see Ireland, particularly if you're coming from outside this country. Oliver, to you, someone is asking on the last assignment, if they want to conduct research, can they have the title of the research relate to their country's condition? For example, they want to research sustainable building in tropical countries, or must it be related to an Ireland condition?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We'd be delighted to supervise a project like that. I have a PhD student myself from the Gulf region, from Arabia. So I do a lot of work with analysis of buildings and urban environments in hotter climates, and we'd be delighted to support that. There are really no, I mean, I would say that there are no constraints. We will certainly ensure that you meet the standard of research that's required, but we are quite open in the range of topics that you can investigate. I mean, obviously, if there's something that we can't supervise and that's far from our knowledge base, then we'll advise you away from that. But otherwise, we'd be very open.
That's great to hear. And Laura, I might just bundle a couple of questions in together for you.
Sure.
Someone is just asking about the closing date for applications for the upcoming academic year. And then someone wondering, will the courses be face-to-face again? So maybe just in terms of application deadline first.
Yeah, so our applications, we have rolling deadlines for applications, so we don't actually have an official closing date as such. Programs just close when we reach capacity. So currently for this program, we still are open for applications, but we would advise applicants to get their applications in as soon as they can if they're looking to start in September of this year. For applicants who may be looking for September 2020, applications will open October 1st of this year.
Okay, and in terms of what teaching might look like come September, any update on that?
Yeah, so in an Irish context, Ireland is on track to have every adult in the country vaccinated by September, or at least offered a vaccine by September. So UCD has not made an official decision on our teaching arrangements for September, but we are hopeful for a return to in-person teaching and on-campus experiences for our students. But we are hoping for an announcement from UCD officially relatively soon, and anyone who has an application in will be notified of any impact on their own teaching for September. And we have an FAQ for COVID on our website, and I'll pop the link to that in our chat in the chat box, and just people should keep an eye on that for any updates as well.
And just finally, a student who says they're an international student wondering if there are any scholarships available, Laura.
Yeah, so we do have a number of scholarships for non-EU students. Unfortunately for this year, for September 2021, applications for scholarships are closed currently. But if they're for September 2022, once you have an offer for a program, there will be Global Excellence scholarships, which range from 50% to 100% tuition cover. And then we have slightly less value scholarships at a college level as well. So they'd be all open to anyone who has an offer for or a conditional offer for one of our programs. But it will be for September 2022 as they're closed for this year.
Thanks, Laura. So I'm going to close the session now as we've ran over time. It was wonderful to see so many of you join us today and to have such great questions. All that's left for me to do is to thank Oliver Kinnane, the Programme Director, our current student, Stephen Wall, and my colleague, Laura Egan O'Brien. Thank you very much and have a good day, everyone.